So some people, they prefer the capsules, and I have tried capsules. The Kratom capsules, they metabolize a little bit slower. And so I never seem to have a full like head change. And just kind of giving a little bit of my backstory, how we got connected in terms of giving my experience with Kratom and sort of how I begun the journey. I was living in Los Angeles, and I had started a mezcal company. I had actually joined a mezcal company. I partnered up with a friend who I had known for a couple of years, and it was a good journey in terms of introducing me to the LA life and I met so many great people, but I think it was like my self-control. I battled with that a little bit because I was on the promotional side, and I was really wine and dining a lot of people, and I ended up drinking a lot of mezcal because I also really appreciated this fine product that we brought from Oaxaca. And then that's when I ended up leaving that company. I just parted ways, sold my shares to my partners. They're doing well. And the aftermath of that was I was always tending to need some sort of alcoholic beverage. At the end of work, if I was just sitting around with some buddies and it was just like, well, let's get some drinks. And I feel like that's so common in our society is we opt to socializing with drinks, with alcoholic beverages. And you see it in front of us every day. Super Bowl commercials is probably 80%, let's say like 40% minimum is alcohol commercials. And so it's in your face. And so I think that's why we naturally kind of gravitate towards that. Plus every single restaurant serves alcohol for the most part. And we say, let's go out to the bar to drink. So I was I basically had a self-discovery that, hey man, I don't really want to, like, speaking in the mirror. Hey David, like I don't really want to drink alcohol anymore. Let's give it a break. And I remember this maybe it's a little bit off, but it's a quote from Steve Jobs, and he says, like, if you look in the mirror and you're dissatisfied day in and day out, there's something you need to change. And that was sort of what occurred to me. And I didn't really have the path for it, but my girlfriend, Hannah, who we've been together for 3 years, we've traveled the world, done some incredible things. She was kind of like my angel. And not even knowing it, she introduced me to Kratom. She asked me hey, can you go into this shop and buy me some of this product? And I went in and I looked at it and I was like, this is kind of expensive for this powder. And then she tried it and she let me have some. And I liked it. I didn't like the flavor to start. And then after taking it for a couple of weeks, maybe like twice a week, I noticed I stopped craving alcohol. And I just, even when I had friends asking me to go out for drinks, I wouldn't even have a beer with them because and it's not that I was consciously saying, hey, I want to go sober. Like, yes, I did have a discussion with myself and say, David, let's make some changes. But this just organically happened. And it's interesting because after taking it for a little while, I reverse engineered the source of this product, of the raw ingredients for Kratom. So it comes from a leaf from Southeast Asia. Majority, I would say and these are facts now that we're in the industry, about 80% comes from Indonesia. And after college, I went to school in Hawaii. After going to school there, I moved to Jakarta for 3 years. And we would also be in Bali a lot. And it's not like saying this, like we weren't like an affluent family or people, but everybody has drivers in Bali because it's impossible to drive as a foreigner. Like, aside from it's on the other side of the road, the traffic is crazy.
Yeah, you go on scooters.
That's super dangerous. And so one of my best friends was Made. So he was my driver. And I wouldn't even say he was my driver. He was like one of my buddies. I also, while living in Indonesia, after the first 6 months, I was meeting all these other foreigners. And I decided, you know what? I'm not here for talking story with the Brits or the Americans or the Australians. And they're all great people. And I love the experience that they're taking in a foreign nation. But I decided, hey, I'm going to become Indonesian. Like I want to live and breathe this country because I'm here. And I actually It's because I decided I was going to be there for such a long time. I thought I was going to be for the rest of my life. Anyway, Made, we used to play chess all the time, and he would always chew on this leaf. And the leaf turned out to be, well, what he would say is, I said, hey, itu apa in Bahasa. And it means like, what is that? And then he would say, oh, ini makan ini nanti mabuk, which means that if you eat this later, you'll feel buzzed. And you can say mabuk in so many terms. And so I remember trying it, and it was really pungent, and it was like, okay, cool. That was the experience. And then after seeing this jar of powder that Hannah, my girlfriend, showed me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the leaf they're always chewing on. So I had a first world experience with it in Indonesia. And so after getting really involved with it on a personal level and seeing how it could really help change my life, and it had already organically done that with alcohol, but I also started to notice other things that it helped me with, like with pain management. Personally, it did help. I had a slip disc from an incident in Los Angeles, which later occurred that I had a sciatica pull like consistently. I couldn't sleep. I was always rolling around. Bought the most expensive bed. Like, maybe it's the bed, maybe it's the pillows, and then maybe it's the air conditioning. No, it was just like this pain wouldn't go away. And I noticed when taking it, it slowly helped me. And not to say that happens for everybody, but it did help me a little bit. And getting a little bit more interested in the product, I decided to reach out to a family that I knew from Kalimantan, which is Indonesia is a very large country, and there's a lot of islands. There's like 17,000 islands, but it's the large one that's off of Java, between Java and Singapore, Malaysia. It's actually partly Malaysia, and it's called Kalimantan, Borneo, the island. And so I reached out to a family that I knew that were durian farmers, because I remember when I went to Chinese New Year to visit them, always we would have lots of durian. And I remember they were chewing the leaf. So I said, oh, I'm going to reach out to them. And they said, oh, yeah, our neighbor. So like 100 to 200 hectare lots. He's like, our neighbor is Kratom farmers. So they introduced me. And ever since we started to work with these guys and guys, girls, families that produce this product. And it's been an interesting journey in terms of going from a struggle, like questioning my sanity, consuming alcohol all the time, and then feeling that like addictive behavior, to easing into taking Kratom by surprise from my girlfriend, and then going into it as a business because it was like, wow, this is something I actually really believe in, and it can help a lot of people. And after reviewing all the stats and the testimonials from other companies, and then even now from our company, it's been really eye-opening to hear all these stories. Like, we get calls all day long from people all around the country that's like, this has helped me. I stopped taking this. And it's really neat to kind of be at for us is like the forefront of this, and to see it as like the CEO of the company. And that's really what motivates us right now.
That's pretty incredible. And we jumped into this. We've got David here, founder of Bagus Botanicals. And I think one of the interesting things that you mentioned is the organic nature of not wanting to partake in alcohol anymore, and that sort of thing I hear quite often, with just kind of the overall plant medicine. Personally, that was something that I experienced with like my first ceremonial setting, specifically with ayahuasca, but just kind of that ceremonial setting where part of the preparation of the dieta, abstain from cannabis for a couple weeks, so I had 10 days, and I was a, daily ritualistic, roll my own joint, smoke my own herb. It was my meditation. It was, it was a practice. That was my plant medicine, for the most part of the time. And then literally, it was one of those things where, oh, cool, I could I could quit for 10 days, like, hey, I'm not addicted. And it was almost kind of a fun, like, prove it moment of like, easy, like, that's fine. And then ever since then, and it's been, about a year, ever since then, no desire, like just no desire to go back. I've probably smoked a half dozen joints since then, as, just sharing a joint with a buddy, or just a moment where I did want to, like, hey, like, this will taste good, like, this is great. But that like intrinsic desire just organically went away, can't necessarily explain it. But I think that is one thing that has always been interesting for me to kind of hear in these conversations, is just how that organically happens. Any thoughts on that, or, just kind of feedback on maybe, in your opinion, why that might be?
I mean, that's an interesting story, because I can relate. And I just ask people, like, how much do you need this? Like, my buddies that will smoke a couple blunts a day, it's like, how much do you need this? And then they will feel guilty when they, like, say it out loud. It's kind of like when you speak something, like when it's internal and then you speak it, you're like, whoa, I feel guilty about that. But I think it's from my personal experience, and then maybe my crowd of people and just my analysis, I think us as humans, we need to take the edge off a little bit. Like, I think and that doesn't even have to be with plant medicine, alcohol, cannabis. It can be the simple thing of running, like runner's high, like you're just getting out of your normal mindset. And I think that we like that contrast, because it makes you appreciate maybe your normal mindset a little bit more, or you find a place for your more normal mindset, as like, this is my work mode, this is my family mode. I can also perform at different levels, whether you're taking Kratom, whether you're smoking cannabis, drinking alcohol, running. When I play sports, I get competitive, and I like that mental mindset, which I think that's out of your normal mindset, because you're stimulated, right, with the competition, with sports. And so, yeah, I just think with humans, we like to alter different mindsets, because it probably puts us in check a little bit and makes us appreciate. We become more grateful of our natural mindset. And that's kind of sort of our approach with the company, is offering, we can't technically say plant medicines, but natural alternatives that will take the edge off a little bit. So everything that we're always going to produce is going to make you feel something. And I know there's a lot of great products out there that are adaptogenic seltzers and stuff. And personally, I haven't felt a lot from it. I've also always taken lion's mane and all the adaptogenic nootropics, just as raw materials. So maybe I don't feel it as much when I'm taking akin. Like, I think they've done an incredible job introducing it into a culture where you're more conscious about what you're drinking. Because when I was growing up, we were drinking sodas like it was water. And that's because it was culturally acceptable, and that was the standard. And I think for kin to create a new standard of adaptogenic beverages, and not just kin, there's a lot of great products out there. But I think that's great, especially for us as like millennials, like being able to take lion's mane. If you take it on a daily basis enough, from my research, you take about a gram a day, and it has to be good quality. It's going to help you with Alzheimer's in the future. Not 100%, but those are the studies that helps a disease like this deviate using nature.
What do you think about and just trying to figure out how to phrase this, you mentioned the culture behind it, but like the cultural implications, right? And this is a recent discussion that I just had today as well around like the indigenous beliefs, or the indigenous, practices, and And, it's almost kind of like the energy that you put into, call it the product, or the plant or whatever, comes through in the end result, So, and I'm a big believer in that as well, and just kind of curious to get your thoughts, feedback, and experience even on, kind of like their like quality of Kratom, and just like your experience with that of, hey, there's probably, product and plant that's been, produced, and, even going down to like the intention of producing the plant for this purpose versus this purpose, something that's more, even call it like commercial or capitalistic versus, something that's more, medicinal and, kind of more along the lines of like the indigenous culture. Like
Totally.
any thoughts, feedback, or experience around that aspect?
I can't speak. I mean, in terms of, I think about it because I was involved a little bit in the cannabis industry, and I can't speak on it scientifically. But what I noticed in terms of, so we speak about taking the edge off a little bit. Like, I would say an indigenous culture is using the plant to consume, smoke. And we've gotten to, and then you also touched on capitalistic. So I noticed the cannabis industry was so saturated, and every brand, every manufacturer was trying to find a new way to introduce a new product to make more money because it was very competitive. And I don't blame them. Like, not 100%. I don't blame them 100% for trying to stay afloat and figure it out to run a business. It's really hard. You have employees, you have people, you're believing in yourself as well. So it becomes personal. But when you're extracting product with butane and ethanol just to get a stronger effect, like that kind of deviates a bit far from plant medicine, in my opinion. And you see it with a lot of products. And I think it has to do similar, like coincides with how we, as maybe we say more in the West, how we consume products, what we're accustomed to. And that's something as simple as a sparkling beverage. Or I think sparkling beverages is a great example because some of the natural plant medicines and original products from that plant that have the alkaloids, that have the molecules that help you in terms of health or get you high. When you add it to a beverage, it's not really water soluble, so you have to convert it a lot in so many different ways. So it's completely impossible to make this in like an Aboriginal setting, to add a cannabis product into a sparkling beverage. Like, it goes through such a process. Like, it's a processed food. That is 100%. And so I think blame it on us, like as consumers, we don't want to have to pour in a powder, mix it up. I want something easy. I have zero time. I have no time for this. I need to take it as a capsule. I need to take it as a drink that's ready to go. And I want it to feel really good. And that in the moment works, but I would say in long-term effects, you're not really getting all the proper like tissues from the plant. So it's a short-term solution, I would say. And that also coincides with the capitalistic aspect, that everyone's just chasing the stronger. You see it in the Kratom industry all the time. Like, there are some extremely strong products out there. And I take Kratom up 4 times a week. I take about a teaspoon and a half per day in 2 different doses, and it's plenty for me. And I've tried, so my tolerance is probably above average than somebody who's never taken it. And I've tried some of the shots that are on the market, and I just got nauseous. I've never thrown up, but everybody that was with me that day threw up. But I didn't feel good. I didn't like the effects. But that also, I can't speak on the experience of this, because I've seen that in the United States, a lot of based off of the opiate epidemic. Like you've seen probably some of these shows like Painkiller. Like it's terrible, like how there's so many victims to this because they had a sprained ankle or however it turned out for them to continue using an opiate prescribed by a doctor for 6 months after they needed it. And so what a lot of these users have, they have the willpower to get off of it. They have families, they have a life they want to return to. And what they've discovered is that Kratom actually helps them with withdrawal management. And from what I've understood is that those stronger products kind of hit closer to home for that opiate effect than a natural powder. So I think there is good intentions around that, depending on the characters that are involved. But just like I was saying, like capitalistic sense, like everybody's searching for something that's just stronger. But that's just what the consumers want. The consumer wants something stronger, stronger, stronger. And I don't know what it is we're competing with ourselves 10 months ago. Like, oh, I used to smoke one joint. Now I smoke like 10 dabs a day. It's like, but why do you need that? Is that consciously okay?
That's a really good comparison. I like how you put that. Yeah. In the cannabis space, all anybody cares about is THC percentage, and then what kind of discount am I getting?
Yeah, I can't
seems to be the
those,
two things.
Like those strong THCs. I can't. I just prefer homegrown. It's as long as it's a sativa, like it'll be good with me. But I can't handle some of the California grown. And I was out there involved in it for quite a while, but it was like 35%. That's wild. Plus, at the same time, I think some of those COAs are doctored for the consumer to say, oh, this is stronger than this one, but technically, like, it's probably not much different.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you too, as far as the convenience factor. And again, for me, it was always just the enjoyment, like I don't want a pre-rolled joint or pre-rolled cigarette that I don't know what the fuck's in there, and
yeah.
My joints are all kind of old school. They're a little pintail. There's no filter. It's like, I want the bud that I bought, or that like I'm grinding it up, I'm smelling it. Like it's this whole aromatic, full spectrum experience of experiencing the plant and, ritualistic, rolling it up, and, you're just inhaling the plant that you've got in front of you, and that was always kind of my relationship with it for the most part. But yeah, I agree for the,
like, I don't know if you've ever grown cannabis, just the 6 plants you're allowed in your house, but in California. But it's cool to see the process. You're like, this little seed now has little legs, and now I put it in soil, and it grows, and then you give it your water. You're like, oh, I'm going to give it filtered water. Like, I care about my plant just as much as me and my family. And then when you come to smoke it, it's like, you know what you're putting in your body.
So dovetailing back to the Kratom experience, and a lot of times I like to kind of bring this up in a kind of a closing tangent, but it's kind of around the idea of the integration. It's all right. You've got this experience, and a lot of times it's something pivotal, kind of like you shared, that almost and again, I find this as a common thread too. It's like, you had this backstory that almost got fulfilled years later, with
Right.
living in Indonesia. And then, oh my gosh, like, I know what this is. It resonates with me. And, it's almost kind of like this experience of years in the making. And now, pivotal moment, now past that, since that's happened, I'd say, what is your experience with kind of integrating that, into your day-to-day life on the standpoint of, kind of your practice around using Kratom, but also, and one aspect that we always like to point at is, It's like the substance or, the plant medicine or whatever it is, could be meditation or whatever, is a tool in the toolbox to achieve, something else. Right. And you pointed at it. Right. And we were kind of pointing at that as it's the kind of the organic nature of your mind just shifting a couple degrees, and your perspective is now different. Your perspective is, oh no, I don't need that beer, and I don't know why, but I'm just seeing things differently, just kind of wanting to poke at, kind of your trajectory since that pivotal experience or that pivotal moment on, what does that integration process look like for you, kind of on the day to day now?
So on point one, in terms of my experience leading me into this, I like how you mentioned that, because one of the distributors I work with, I told him the story, and he's like, wow, that's really cool. You were meant to be with that girl that you were in Indonesia with. Maybe this is all part of your plan in life. And then, because it's not like I consciously understood this leaf is going to be a business for me in the future. Like, no, it just landed back on my lap. And I think with having that experience and visiting the farmers, having some of my best friends were Indonesian drivers. They would cook their skewers, like their chicken kebabs, on the street. And that's how I went to learn Indonesian. And they were just the kindest, happiest people. And that's just, having that experience has led me to take a little bit of a different path, led us to take a different path with Bagus Botanicals, because there's a lot of importers of Kratom in the United States that you can buy the product for pretty cheap. I wouldn't say it's extremely cheap, but a lower price than what we pay. So we actually source it directly from the farmers, because I know that they're getting cut out a little bit. They're getting lowballed on their sale price. And I know how much work it is, just like farming in general. And I just think that they will apply it towards something that will better their themselves and their upcoming generations. And one of the programs that we've helped in Kalimantan is to educate on palm oil farming. So there was like a slippery slope moment for the kratom industry, that it was borderline going to be banned on import. And so a lot of the kratom farmers were going to go to palm oil farming. And we've seen what that does to rainforests. And it hasn't done well in the past. So we helped educate on that, and offering them a higher price for their product from what they were normally getting paid has offered them a lot of educational opportunities for their kids. So that's, having that experience being in Indonesia allowed us to take that path. And although we don't have the same margin that maybe some of the companies in the US have, we're fine with that. I think it goes full circle for everybody. We're not in here in the industry just to make money. We want to make a difference, and not just for the Americans, not just for ourselves, for everybody. You have to respect the farmers. And then in terms of what you were saying about a tool, how I've integrated Kratom into my life as a tool, that moment that I realized that, subconsciously realized, wow, I don't crave alcohol. I still have a beer every once in a while, but I don't crave it like I used to. I'm not completely sober. I was close to having an issue. I was avoiding calls with people. I was not as close with my family. And I think I'm not blaming alcohol. It was just the behavior surrounding it, And so adopting that into my routine pretty much kicked alcohol. And I noticed while taking Kratom, just raw green mangda, which is the typical stimulating leaf, I would have slight, not issues with work, but I would be less focused because I have so much energy. And that's sort of where we ended up making that flow state product that has the lion's mane and the ginseng. And that's how we ended up making a functional Kratom, so that you can actually work, because we're on our computers a lot, right? and you need to stay focused, I always have to tune into like a really good frequency. Growing up, I was always distracted with anything around me. I had to sit in the corner of my class, not because I was misbehaved, but because I would get distracted. And I've noticed with the flow state and a couple other combinations that we've experimented with have really helped me keep my focus. And it wouldn't even particularly be from the Kratom. It's also the lion's mane, taking enough of it daily. Ginseng, I think, is an incredible source of energy. And that's probably my greatest tool over the last 24 months is taking Kratom consciously, knowing that I'm using it for a purpose. Everything that we do, I think, requires a bit of intention, whether it's when you're falling asleep. Hey, I would like to dream about this. Like I do. If I don't do it, I wake up like in sweats, like, wow, that was scary. I can't believe I almost just fell off a cliff in my dream. But if you consciously think about what you want to dream about, or you put yourself in a mood, then you're going to consciously have a better dream. And it's just like whether we're living in a dream or not. But if you do something with an intention, I think your body follows through those thoughts and those intentions. You have to have a roadmap to get places. And I think it all starts in the mind and in the heart. So consciously taking Kratom has been a pretty miraculous tool for me.
That's incredible. That's probably the difference. It's the intention and the awareness of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and continuing to remind yourself. And, and I think, again, that's why they call it a practice. It's just, you're practicing ongoing and practicing that awareness of, I'm here for this, I'm doing this. And I think over time that starts to do, again, my big thing is, it's, you could be doing something to be more productive, to be more focused, to stress less, have less anxiety. And I call those the byproducts. Those are the byproducts of your perception changing 3 degrees. It doesn't have to be a 180. You're not shaking everything up in your life. Everything's the same. It's just your perspective is slightly different, and everything else looks different. You're seeing it through a different lens. All those byproducts naturally and organically happen, as you mentioned earlier.
I think this when you have a little bit of stress, it's also Stephen Kotler. He has a theory on flow state where you have to be in motion with something that you feel comfortable with, but challenging enough that you tap into flow state. And it's like when you reach new heights, you hit a new benchmark. And for me, that's like flow state. When you consciously know you are in a new benchmark, that you achieved something that was slightly challenging, but you had flow with it. It's like makes the following day just totally different, because it's like playing Mario. You're at a next level. Okay, cool. I don't have to start with like that. Now I'm facing the dragon. See how long it takes me to pass this level. Yeah, love that. And I like the flow state. I'm gonna finish this drink here, and I'll let you know how I'm going through the rest of the day. Yeah, just remember, do it with an intention. That's right. Right. Well, awesome. Feeling good about it. Anything you want to cut there? Anything else you want to share? Last thoughts? No, I think that kind of touches on a good story, and I appreciate you taking the time today. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I always give gratitude as well, because this platform is only valuable because of the vulnerability and the stories shared, and the connections that community is able to have from sharing your story, and a little bit of the humanity behind what you're doing and your experience. So much appreciated having you share today and our conversation and being able to connect. All right.